where does this masterpiece fall? Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
All right, this is the part of the show that I've been looking forward to the most. That I can't wait to see what our final tally is. But let's start with Vince as usual. Where do you rate Pig on your Cageometer?
We talked a lot about ratings and tens and all that. Like when do we give it? Like all that stuff. So I kind of went back and forth on this, but I got to give both the movie and his performance a 10. For me personally, I felt like this film was probably one of the most perfect or close to perfect films I could possibly or that I personally have seen in a long time. And then the performance from Nick, same thing. I think this is, I thought Mandy, he did a great job at Mandy. Like, that was one of my favorite performances, but I think this was a whole different level. I know you and I talked a little bit about it, Patrick, earlier, but he didn't have to do a lot, or it came off as if he wasn't doing a lot, but there was so much that was going on behind his choices.
Yeah.
Just emotions that he brought to the grief scenes and things like that. It's kind of, I think, really solidified a 10 in my mind for him. Like, going back to the movie, just the themes that they focused on and nailing them. The theme of loss and grief added on to isolation for his character. I think they all spun. It all crafted this story that played out very well. The pacing was phenomenal. The acting in this movie from everybody was phenomenal. I love that they let the actors just develop these scenes and play through the emotions. We talked a little bit about it between him and Derek, and him being accused of overacting, the actor being accused of overacting, but you're seeing this guy who is being faced with the reality that he might have wasted his life. He didn't chase after his true dreams, and you see that facade start cracking, and this guy starts having a breakdown. He's being told by somebody that he idolized, like, hey, you wasted your life because you created this fake environment, this fake restaurant, this fake food, and these people don't care about you. You could have had genuine connection with them if you had gone and opened a pub, and you still would have created great food, but you would have been able to create memories and all these other things. And, you just see this actor just break down, and they weren't afraid to just hold it on that actor and let him deliver that performance. And then same with scenes with Amir, when Amir's talking about the meal that his parents had, they just hang on it. The scene in the bakery where he's talking to her, or where they're talking, and they just do this very slow push in on them, and it's framed so well with the counter and everything, and it's lit beautifully. And they just allowed the actors to develop these scenes and develop the emotions, and I think that's what added a lot to it. They take this story that's a very simple story, like we talked about, and it could have gone off the rails and been a John Wick parody, right? But they keep it grounded, and they weave these characters' lives together so well, and you're not expecting it. At least I wasn't from the beginning, that by the end of it, you would genuinely feel bad for all three of these guys, right? And just like the writing was done so well, it felt grounded. There was, the Fight Club stuff was a little weird, but you accept it because everything else fits so well, and the relationships they allow the characters to develop over the time, and the relationships develop. And by the end of the movie, you have somebody who was, and we've all been there, and I think that's kind of where it hit for me. It's like we've all been in that part of our life where we're trying to ignore the grief that we need to process, and he goes through this journey and finally has to acknowledge the death of his pig, which then forces him to acknowledge the death of his wife, because very clearly at the beginning we learn he hasn't accepted it, and it's been 15 years since she passed. And he finally gets that outbreak, and he's finally going to process it. And I think it's just beautifully written, and the ending is nice. It's not like this happy-go-lucky moment, but it really is. I believe that last shot of him looking at the bed and then looking up is him finally accepting the loss of his wife, and it came through the companionship of his pig. And I mean, I know a lot of people feel the same way when they lose their animals. Like, you can, so it's just like they hit on all these levels, and it worked really well. And then Nick, like I said, he didn't overact anything. Even that scene where he's kicking the shit out of the Camaro, could have easily, once again, like Mandy, like it just reminded me of that scene in the bathroom with Mandy. Like those could have easily have been like super cagey moments, but the grief and pain you hear in him screaming, it just grounds it again. Because like this is a man who's on the verge of what he thinks is getting his pig back or getting the answer, and he's clinging to hang on.
Yeah,
and
he felt betrayed by the person that he had slowly started to care about.
Yes,
you know,
and that's another thing too. Is like now he's having to face the reality that this guy betrayed him. You know, because Amir makes it a point to say, I never told my dad about you, and then you find out he did, and Nick's not dumb. Like he knows he did. But I mean, he didn't have to do a lot. You know, he didn't have to over project anything. His subtle performance. It comes off as subtle, but there's so much weight behind it. That I gotta give him a 10. I'll give both the movie and his performance a 10. And we've seen quite a few movies in this first season, and I think this is by far the best. And I think I think the reason why a lot of people are so positive on it is because it's kind of the perfect film for the time that we just came out of with COVID. A lot of people having to deal with isolation and grief and loss, and I think this is just a beautiful way of showing how people process that stuff, and it's not always going to be in the most healthy manner. Yeah, and I think people can really connect with the character and his feelings. So I'm excited to see what you guys think.
I'm like super excited to see where this guy, his career goes. You know what he's going to do next. But, let's jump over to Nigel. Where does Pig rate on your cageometer?
This one I struggled with briefly as the movie was going along, but by the time the credits rolled, it was absolutely no contest in my mind that it's a 10 out of 10. It was not even like I didn't have to. I was trying to find nitpicks to bring the score down, and I realized that's a really stupid thing to do when gut feeling wise, the movie felt absolutely perfect to me. Throughout the first act, I didn't quite feel that way because I wasn't quite sure where we were going and what we were doing with it. But that's, I think, intentional. As the movie goes along, it sets up this pretty straightforward premise with an increasingly bizarre path that you're going down to it. But it starts to cycle back within itself and tie itself together as you go along. And you realize, as the movie is going on, that what it's trying to tell you that you've been absorbing the whole time without even realizing it, and does it masterfully. And I think that's another, like, that's a way that how our psyches work. They process through things without us even realizing we're processing it. And by the time they do realize is when you have a breakthrough, you realize that you've been dealing with something all along. Yeah. Super vague, but I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
It does.
And again, we've touched on it briefly before, but the whole food aspect of it is, this movie works perfectly well as a deconstruction of a revenge plot type of movie that we would both associate with Nicolas Cage because of his more recent movies and just with Hollywood movies in general. Like I said, it was intentional. This was set up with the exact same premise as John Wick. There's a loner guy getting over the loss of his wife with an animal companion who is taken from him, and he sets out on a path to get it back or get revenge. And it turns out that, he's super revered in his old lifestyle. Everybody knows who he is and is in awe of who he is. And it's because of his old lifestyle that he's experienced the loss of this animal. That's the same premise as John Wick has, but it goes in a completely different direction. Yeah. And I think it sets you up for that, expectation just to, I don't want to say subvert it because that's kind of a meme now, even though I don't inherently think subverting expectations is bad, like some forms of the internet do. But it deconstructs it, and it breaks your barriers down and hits you with something you weren't expecting if you were along for the ride. It's a great examination of grief and dealing with that and just humanity in general and how we deal with other people and with tragedies. And I think the overall message of you only get so many things that you really care about in life. If you really think about it, if everything was taken away from you, there's only a handful of people you probably really care about, and they're not even things, they're people, or animals. And that's really all that matters. And experiencing it through the eyes of Rob, who is a man who's lost everything he really cared about when the movie starts, and then loses the final thing he actually cares about, is very tragic, but also very poignant. And it's a theme that's stuck with me since I saw it last night. It's going to stick with me for a while. The movie as a whole will stick with me for a while. It's one of the best things I've seen in the last decade, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an easy 10 out of 10. I can't find flaws with it. Like you said, I'm really surprised that they cut an hour out of this movie because I don't know what they could have shot or added and then taken out and still be left with this hour and a half movie that feels like it's perfect for what it is. The runtime of it is perfect. The script perfectly tells a story they want to tell, and deals with the themes that they want to deal with or that they want to present, and gives us the characters they wanted this to have. So it's super surprising to me that they did that.
With 20 days of shooting, how did they end up with a 2.5 hour movie? Like, what else did they shoot? I mean, maybe they just stretched out the scenes more, and
could be, or they added some more backstory or something and realized that we don't really need it.
Yeah.
If there's just enough to get, the backstory of Rob and of Amir and of Darius that it suits the purpose. So, and also on that note, with Nicolas Cage's performance, again, it's an easy 10 out of 10. There were multiple times throughout the movie that I forgot I was looking at Nicolas Cage, and I had to remind myself as I was looking at him that is Nicolas Cage, and I still couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Because all I saw is his character of Rob that he not just embodies, but presents to us without using dialogue a lot of the times. Like, you can see on his face everything that he's feeling, and somehow there's still more going on beneath the surface that you can't see, that It's this weird mix of sympathizing with him and knowing that there's more going on beneath the surface, but he somehow projects it perfectly. You can read it on his face, while also being enigmatic and captivating.
Yeah.
And it's similar to Mandy, and even in some cases Willy's Wonderland, where we've talked about he can play a character who doesn't talk for a lot of the movie and still has a presence. And his presence in all three of those movies is completely different from each other. But I think in this one, it's a perfect representation of that character. Like I said,
just think of those three movies and just think of the range that he has. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest things about this movie or this show. It's like he's so different in everything he does, and Vampire's Kiss versus Pig, just think of the differences in his performances, and And
I think that's people who watch this. I think a large part of the audience might be reminded of the fact, or be learning from this movie, that he is a fantastic actor when he wants to be. And I think I actually read that Ethan Hawke did a Reddit AMA. I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but somebody was talking about how a movie he did with Nicolas Cage, that Lord of War. They were talking about his favorite scene was some scene he did with Nick Cage in Lord of War, and he said that Nicolas Cage, as far as he's concerned, is the only actor since Marlon Brando who's actually done anything different with the art of acting. Brought something new to the table, and tried to do a different approach to acting. Which is insane if you really think about it.
That's why, the big reason I wanted to do this show is we're definitely not reinventing the wheel by sitting here talking about Nicolas Cage, but I feel like a lot of the shows that talk about Nicolas Cage is just, look at this goofy guy doing this goofy stuff, and look at all these crazy things he does, and look at that face he made, and all that kind of stuff. And it's there's something so much deeper to Nicolas Cage that I think a lot of people miss, and I think it's sad and tragic that he doesn't get the praise that he really deserves. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and you can see it. Just look at the 13 movies that we've done so far. They are so different from one another. When Tom Cruise is in a movie, it's Tom Cruise. It's just, there's Tom Cruise is in the movie. He's playing Tom Cruise.
Look, there he goes running again.
He's running. When Nicolas Cage is in a movie, you don't know what to expect. I mean, it's different every time out. And I mean, this movie is a perfect example of did you think after watching Willy's Wonderland that you would see a performance like this from Nick Cage ever again? And it's in the line,
the fact that you can spend most of the movie just watching him non-verbally having this on-screen presence with this character and somehow embodying this character that we don't really know, but we feel like we fully understand.
Yeah.
To switch to the one scene where he delivers the monologue to Derek in the, his probably his main speaking scene in the movie, to have such a poignant, well-acted, spot-on delivery of the theme and the message of the movie on who that guy is as a character, I felt like I was watching Nicolas Cage tell me that himself in person, and it felt so heartfelt and sincere that if that wasn't him actually carrying those thoughts, he perfectly portrayed the fact that Rob believes these things and is so adamant about it, and that we should believe it too, because it's a universal message that I think everybody needs to be reminded of, and that you need to do what matters to you, and don't present a false front or false facade or face, because nobody will get to know who you are in life unless you show them. And unless you are sincere about it. And even then, they're probably still not going to know the real you. So all that really matters is doing what you like and caring about the things you care about, because the things that you care about are a gift.
Yeah.
And you don't get them forever. You will lose some certain things in life, and that's just part of it. Which means that the things that you care about, you should care about all the more, because they're fleeting.
And I think that's Nicolas Cage in general is like, he doesn't give a shit what people think about him, and it's one of the things I love about him so much is like, what's he going to do this time? Is he going to do a kung fu movie? He's fighting aliens? Is he going to do a movie where he's fighting animatronics? Is he going to do a movie where he's so poignant and heartfelt talking about a pig? Like, it's just. He does what he wants to do. And I think that's kind of the whole message of this movie is like, you should do the things that are important to you while you can.
Yeah. And I think he cares about the craft of acting.
Yes.
In the same way that Rob cares about the craft of cooking, and it's, you can pour your heart and soul into what you do in a career or a hobby, or you can devote your life to people you care about or the loved ones that you have, and it doesn't matter. That's all that life really is, and that's all it should be. And to me, it's like, it's also verification for just doing this show. Who cares if anybody even watches this show?
Yeah, who cares?
We want to do it. we want to have fun with it. We want to bare our souls to people when we talk about these movies. That's what makes it a valuable thing.
Yeah, and it's just fun for us to get together and have a reason to spend time with each other. It's almost like 90% of the reason we're doing it in the first place is just to hang out with each other and have a reason to get together all the time.
So again, flawless movie for me. Flawless performance from Nick Cage. Masterpiece on both fronts, and I did not expect that a month ago when I first heard about this movie.
I don't think any of us did.
Same. Like when I started seeing the reviews coming in and they were like in the 90s, I was like, oh, well, that's going to change. It's going to drop. And then it just kept getting higher. Like it started out at like a 90%, and then it was like 92, and then a 94, and then a 97. I'm like, people are like really loving this movie. Mm-hmm. And that was, when I saw that trailer, when I heard the synopsis, that was like the point when I was like, oh, here we go. I can't wait to see this craziness, And
I really think the people who don't like it are the ones that were expecting a John Wick style movie and didn't get it, and they just, personal preference, didn't like what this movie was, I guess. But again, the movie was doing what it was trying to do. Like, it was, that's the whole point is, I don't really know if I'm coalescing those thoughts properly, but I'm just trying to find out why somebody could dislike this movie. I know from a personal level you might dislike it because it's not your cup of tea, but I think just the execution of the movie was perfect.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like these types of indie think pieces and stuff, and I get that, but at the same time, it's not for everybody. And if you're primarily
with the theme of the movie,
talking about,
if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
Like the movies you like. It's
you
fine.
spend your time reviewing Transformers and blockbuster, summer movies and stuff like that. Like, this might not be your cup of tea, but you got to give it credit for what it is. And so that leads me on my Cageometer. I also gave it a 10. So perfect 10s across the board. I mean, it goes back to everything. It's just, the pacing is perfect. The writing is perfect. The emotional weight of the film it's like the perfect meal, it just all comes together at the right time. And like when it hits, when he drops on the floor and, has his emotional breakdown, like they set it up perfectly for the 80 minutes that preceded it. And it was shot beautifully. Like the only thing I didn't like was the shaky cam, but I can get over that for sure. Is the story is what matters. At the end of the day, that's always what matters, and the story was perfectly executed. I feel like on all fronts. It's a very small cast. It's only like 5 people really throughout the thing, yeah. 5 or 6 people, and everybody brought something to it that made it great. The Derek thing, like people criticizing him overacting, that's him. That's the person that he was talking to.
The character is overacting.
The character is putting on a facade in front of this person who he hasn't seen in 15 years, and he's pretending to be what he's been pretending to be for the last 15 years, and you see that slowly break as he realizes, oh my God, what have I done? I've devoted my life to this crap, that yes, maybe it's successful, but he would have been successful at anything if he would have put his heart and soul into it, which he did put his heart and soul into this goofy Eurydice's restaurant, but it wasn't what he really wanted.
Yeah.
And I just love that, like within a paragraph, Rob just cuts him to the bone, cuts this character down to nothing and makes him realize what he's done with his life. He's just wasted it, and that does not happen without just the unbelievable acting performance that Nick Cage gave in that, especially that scene. Every one of his little monologues is just so well done. I felt like everybody brought it, like I didn't expect Spencer from Jumanji. like he's gonna be a force to be reckoned with. I feel like he's on pace to be a pretty big star, and I didn't expect that. He again was another person who just kind of transformed into another person for that role. I guess I haven't really seen him in a lot of things, but like he really made that his own and made it his own character. And then Adam Arkin. Is it Adam or Alan? Adam, right?
Not Alan. Alan Arkin's different.
Yeah, Alan Arkin is the legend of it. Yeah. But Adam Arkin, I felt like he brought something to that character too, that, there's just a gravitas to that character that, you had to feel that authoritative kind of asshole vibe that he gave off, and he gave it off perfectly. And that's a testament to his acting. If you don't like a character, it's usually because they did a great job. Like if you genuinely hated, like if you hated Joffrey on Game of Thrones, it's because he delivered such a great performance.
Yes. Yeah.
If you hate David in The Weatherman,
yes,
Nick Cage gave an 9 out of 10 performance.
Because you wanted him, because he was supposed to be unlikable. So the movie across the board, I can't wait to see what Michael Swarovski, Crystals,
Darren Aronofsky,
Darren Aronofsky. Can't wait to see what he does. No, what is it? Sarnowski?
Nicolas Sarkozy. Michael Sarnowski.
Michael Sarnowski. I can't wait to see what Michael Sarnowski does with his career. He's so young and obviously incredibly talented. I think he could be the next, Darren Aronofsky. Like he could be a legend. I mean, he's starting off with a hell of a bang, and maybe this is just like, he told a really personal story, and maybe he won't be able to tell such a personal story going forward. But like the writing with Vanessa Block and the two of them together obviously are an amazing writing team, and I hope they continue to write together. Like I said, this is a perfect example of like a story doesn't need to be complicated. This is a very simple story, but the characters within it bring so much to the table. you don't need to tell a difficult story in order to tell a good story, and I think a lot of people miss that, especially with like the big Hollywood blockbuster movies. They try and make them so huge and have so many things going on, like Gone in 60 Seconds when we were watching that movie, where it's just like there's something every couple of seconds, it's like cut throughout the whole thing. It's like you could have told that story so much simpler and cut out all of that fluff, and like you wouldn't have to set up things over and over and over again. And we really don't do that in this film. It just like we just follow this simple narrative throughout the whole thing, but like you let your characters breathe and bring the emotional weight that is necessary for this. And the small cast, I think, really helped too. Like you really get to know the characters. So I gave it a 10. On Nick Cage's performance, I also gave it a 10, and it was for exactly what Nigel said. He disappears completely. Like there are moments when, like, so the moment when he's looking through the bakery window, I was like, oh yeah, it's Nicolas Cage. Because he looks like Nicolas Cage for a second, but like throughout the whole thing, he just disappears into that character. And maybe you could say like, oh, it's because of the costuming and the fact that he's covered in blood and he's got long hair and a beard and all that stuff. But like, no, he really transformed into this person. And you can really feel the emotion behind his performance throughout the whole thing. This just tragic character and the tragedy that he's had to deal with, and you feel all of it. And his relationship with Amir, I think, was so great, of him just slowly beginning to care about that character who, he obviously was super annoyed with at the beginning. He was just kind of a necessary evil to get some money, I guess, and some supplies and stuff. But he really you can really genuinely see that he begins to care about him as it goes on. And you can tell, as he says in the movies, like you don't get a lot of things to care about in this world. His love for that pig was kind of put onto Amir slowly over the movie, and like he starts to understand him and understand the reasoning behind the things that he does, the way he dresses, the car that he drives, the fact that he listens to that classical music with the guy explaining why he should like it. So yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing performance, so unexpected. Especially Willy's Wonderland was the last movie that came out. Apparently it wasn't the last thing that he had shot. It kind of looks like he had shot Pig before Willy's Wonderland, which is kind of amazing to me.
I think he did. When was Willy Wonderland filmed? Because this was filmed.
I'm not sure when it was filmed. It came out. It was released, everywhere, 2021, early 2021. But I think it, because of the pandemic, which, same with Pig, was delayed. Which, both of those movies could have been released right in the middle of the pandemic, and because they're streaming movies anyway. That's the way things work nowadays. And everything goes straight to streaming. But it's just so unexpected, especially after the run of Dog Eat Dog.
Yeah, so Willy's Wonderland was filmed in 2020.
So he filmed Pig before
Willy's
Wonderland, which must have been really cathartic for him after doing this.
I'll
go back to beating
going from that to Willy's Wonderland.
And Prisoners of the Ghostland kind of feels, kind of harkens back to Mandy a little bit, where it's just like a crazy mishmash of different genres all put together. It'll be interesting to see what happens after this with Nick. Like, let's say he gets an Oscar nomination for this, which, his name's been thrown around a lot. And I know that there's rumors that there's actually kind of a personal vendetta against Nicolas Cage winning an Oscar.
Really?
Since what happened with adaptation. So if you don't know, so he's the lead in adaptation. Chris Cooper and Meryl Streep both got nominated for Oscars, and the unbelievably amazing performance of Nicolas Cage was just kind of scoffed at and left. And he didn't. I think he got nominated, but he is the only one out of the three who didn't win, which is messed up.
That's weird.
But his performance in that movie is absolutely brilliant, and is probably going to be my other 10 out of this entire run. because he plays two characters and they're so distinct from each other. It's an amazing performance. But anyways, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. And, my big question is, like, does he continue doing the movies that he's been doing for the last 5 or 6 years, or does he start doing something more on par with this? Does he get into more, heavy-weighted films and movies that are, award-worthy again?
Well, is he out of debt?
I honestly feel like he is, because
so maybe we'll see him return to form instead of just doing everything that comes his way.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I think that's the beauty of him. I think he'll do both. He loves acting.
Yeah.
I think at this point in his life, it's just about acting. It's not, It's not about critical acclaim.
I think it happens to a lot of actors too when they hit 60 or so. They just they'll do whatever because
I think he's
it's
just
fun and
doing what he
have to
wants.
do a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which,
look at like Robert De Niro these days.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw. There's a new movie with Chris Walken where he's like a farmer in the Midwest, and like he goes up against Monsanto. I was like, awesome. Wow, that feels like a departure for Christopher Walken, but like,
that's awesome.
I'm there for it, man. Anyways, so yeah, full 10s across the board, which I don't think this will ever happen again. From the list of movies that we've got ahead of us, I think, personally, Raising Arizona is my favorite Nicolas Cage movie of all time. Probably close to my favorite Coen Brothers movie of all time, who are my favorite directors of all time. But I don't even know if I can give as good of a a rating for that as I gave for this. This is kind of a brilliant little masterpiece that we may never see another performance like this ever again.
Yeah.